it took a little long. It was a little long for certain.
I'll go ahead today. I answered last time.
Oh yeah, well here we are. Here we are, guys. Another episode of Whiskey Wins and Business. It's been quite the week so far. I think it's been 2 weeks since our last video. We're here on Halloween Day. Hopefully our microphones work better this time. And
well, hopefully they don't pick up the screaming kids outside. We have some candy out there and some really spooky Halloween decorations. They like to scream. It's been entertaining so far.
yes, hopefully it's selective now because we're trying to hold a straight face, but we literally hear screaming and kids outside stealing candy and yelling. So hopefully we can commit through this video and not have it be interrupted. But we did drop some dollars. We got some obviously new microphones. Hopefully they work a lot better. We are locally recording and we've upgraded our software. So hopefully we get a little better 4K resolution versus what we've been having. But we're here to make some wins and losses for now. See how this goes.
Yeah. Now we won't get made fun of by some of you other people in our group.
Well,
Kind of hurts our feelings a little.
Yeah. So I think us connected, we actually haven't had our meeting yet this week. We're a little bit, a week and a half we're behind. We're playing scrambling, but maybe that's part of the point. Even though we haven't hit the schedule to discuss as much, we still get to it eventually. I think even having it scheduled to chat and do this, even though it wasn't the day we planned, it was still a sense of urgency to get it done versus, going 5 weeks. We're only 5 days behind. So
yeah, we're also moving the needle on a lot of stuff, even though we haven't had that. We still catch up every day just because we're doing so many different things. So
that we are definitely still. I guess we've narrowed our focus, but now some of those opportunities are growing because we're getting faster and more opportunities in each aspect, and I think it's helping us define our parameters. And I think we're definitely more focused now, getting into more of the business acquisition stuff now as well, especially after you did your underwriting tool. That went really well. It seemed to be funny enough to me. I thought it was funny because the business underwriting is more involved than underwriting for real estate for the most part, especially in SFRs or, a 4-unit, but you underwrote those very quickly.
Just high level,
and it makes sense. So it's still kind of baffled, but it's also interesting that the business underwriting is very comfortable for you. Obviously, you've done it a lot and very experienced, but it's a unique point to make that you don't transfer that skill to real estate because it still seems foreign to you, even though
there's so many more variables, I feel like, in real estate than there is in a quick overview of a business. I mean, looking at their assets, because most business purchases are going to be assets only. So looking at a gross revenue and then just a net profit margin and looking at assets and liabilities in there and kind of coming up with a true valuation of what a business is it's literally 5 numbers. And then you dig in. And then you dig into a P&L and you dig into a balance sheet and do all these things. But for the most part, the start is the high level. And I think that's the easiest part. And that's why we have 40 of them on our sheet right now. So I created a little sheet. It was just an Excel with a very basic formula in it that basically looks at the profit, the gross profit, I should say. And then we have a multiplier in there, which is going to be kind of a standard industry multiplier, which is going to be based on the gross revenue. And then just looking at assets and taking out any liabilities to figure out what the business is really truly worth at a very, very high level. So, there's so many other variables that go into it, but that's at least a start to say, okay, this is viable at this amount or it's not. As to where with real estate, there's so many other factors that go into even a high level underwrite. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. There's so many other things that go into that. And it's a learning curve. The business, it's not, just because I've been doing it for so many years.
it's interesting. Yeah, because I think I would disagree. I would say I think the real estate is significantly easier by far than business is. Business, I think, is easier to hide some of the details as opposed to real estate. But I think after I spent the last 2 days kind of understanding why you excelled there and why real estate's still kind of this new understanding for you, and my brain has grasped that when you buy a business, you're buying with an already known expectation of revenue. And so when you're buying it, you're expecting to take it over and make X amount of money without any changes. You can assume it as is, you're taking it at this dollar amount. We're not all real estate, but the majority of real estate we get into now, maybe 70, 80% of it, we're buying with assumptions. So we're trying to buy a property and predict its future value or its future cash flow, which is something that maybe is unique because it's not where it's at now. So you have to try to envision what it could be 3 months, 6 months, a year, 3 years down the road, which I think is where maybe the trick is kind of what my brain's trying to understand. Because in business, I'm like, all right, the last 3, 4, 5 years, it's done X, Y, Z amount. Yeah. If I go into day one, I can at least try to hold that flat without any growth or loss. If I can just at least replicate the owner's current expectations and quality of service, I can do that. I don't have to make the assumption. Now, granted, I say it with a grain of salt, but that's kind of been my assumption this week, is that I think it's because there's a comfort level of knowing exactly what you're looking at, whereas real estate is sort of maybe a wild guess. Like you are making a lot of assumptions. And obviously, if you get a property that's already going to be cash flowing, it's a different scenario, right? And maybe it's much easier to walk into that process because we already see the numbers. But obviously, you pay a premium for a turnkey scenario that's already rented out. So it's almost the deal then becomes like maybe a non-deal because your buy-in rate's so high. But that's kind of been my thought. I don't know what yours has been on that. But that's kind of what I've noticed, is that why obviously we're more experienced in business, and you're definitely way more experienced in business. But like, I'm very clear that, kind of go back to the story, I left for got groceries in an hour and a half. You loosely underwrote like 30, 35 businesses. But at the same time, for real estate, you might be stuck on 1 or 2. And we underwrote a deal, was it in Georgia, right? And that took like an hour and a half trying to use calculators. And we're trying to use other people's calculators, and it's only like 8 or 10 numbers. Yeah. And it was like a back and forth confusion trying to read videos. But like you created a sheet from a blank Excel sheet. Well, I went and got dinner and grabbed groceries and underwrote like 35 businesses. So I guess I'm more curious about how that works in your brain, because I'm like, businesses have a longer due diligence to underwrite it, but like, I just mean it's a longer process. I'm the opposite. I can underwrite a house in 60 seconds at a high level, but a business I need like 35 minutes.
And that's where we're opposite. I think with the real estate being so new, the confidence level's not there. And not knowing everything that really goes into underwriting, whether it be single family or a duplex or multifamily or whatever it is, however many doors, that part's kind of irrelevant. Obviously it's a lot harder to do multifamily, but yeah, it's just the little nuances that you just don't know. And like you said, in a business that's already there, if you have 3 or 4 or 5 years of historical financials and you can see the trends, and it's really, really easy to identify, like the one that we were just underwriting the other day and that we spent some extra time on, we already had a P&L, we had a balance sheet to look at, and we could clearly see that there were so many fluctuations and so many just like, wait, what? Because one year things were amazing and everything made sense. Like it all went kind of down the line where you expect the profit margins to be, you expect the gross payroll to be this much a percentage of revenue, and just like the cost and the cost of goods sold. And then the next year, everything was just completely different. Revenue was up, but everything else was down, which doesn't make any sense because of inflation. So to me, those things I can see so easily in historic financials. And it's because of my day-to-day job, because I've been doing this for 20 years. With houses, it's just not that way. One, you don't see the cash flow. You have to go on so many different, sites. You got to go on PropStream or Privy or wherever it is, and you got to get comps to make sure that it makes sense at the ARV and figure out what that ARV truly will be, and get kind of a broad estimate of what you expect the repair cost to be based on pictures. Like there's just so much more that really goes into it, I think. And that's where my hang up is I just don't, like I can quickly underwrite. If I know that you need a PML, here's the ARV, here's what rents are expected to be, like I can throw those numbers together and that's not a problem. It's just getting to those numbers that I think takes the bulk of the time for me.
Interesting. Okay.
So if I can look, like if a wholesaler brings us a house and says, hey, here's everything. Here's what we expect the ARV to be. Here's what we expect a PML to need to come in with, or whatever our entry fee is. And then, what our typical payments are, because we've worked with PMLs before and being PMLs ourselves. And then knowing what the rental cost is and stuff like that, and knowing what the rents in the area are and what they've been trending. Mm-hmm. If we know all that stuff, that's easy. That's really easy to underwrite. But if it's a matter of getting all that stuff gathered, because all you know is here's how much they want for the house and here's some pictures. Yeah. That's the harder part, is getting all that stuff together.
Now, I want to challenge you a little bit, because if my brain says we had a property this week which came to us like 95% underwritten, and we still spent like an hour and a half trying to piece it. Now, what was the missing element? Because the reason I bring it up, because I want to understand, because you're trying to do a business tool. I'm obviously working on real estate, and we're obviously venturing more into business, but a lot of people we're connecting with are vice versa, right? They're real estate focused, a real estate background, leading more into business, and we're kind of the opposite. So we've got into business, into real estate now, but I want to try to find a way to help maybe people understand how we're bridging the gap and what the mindset shift is going from a real estate to a business. Because my brain says it should be easier going from real estate to business, but some people may feel opposite. So I'm not certain why. Going back to our example this week, we had a deal that was mostly underwritten, but we still got hung up. So what do you think was the reason we still stumbled trying to assess what was mostly an already pre-written or pre-underwritten deal for us?
Well, I think some of it is just the tools we're using. We're not, I mean, when anybody picks up a new tool, it's like putting in a new piece of software. There's a learning curve. And part of that, I think, is the fact that we were trying to use different tools that we didn't fully understand where some of the numbers were coming from. One of them was just broken links, and so we couldn't get it to actually function. So I think that that's part of it.
Well, let me challenge you again, because we had no underwriting tool for business, but you watched someone speak for like 30 seconds about it, and then you went and created a tool like during a gas station run. So what was the difference for like I don't need a tool, I can go create it, whereas like I need to go find a tool for real estate?
I think a lot of it is just knowledge. I don't know anything about the underwriting real estate. Like I've done the top tier underwriting, and it was super, super beneficial to go through and kind of learn all that stuff. But it was also very, very detailed and high level. And so it was still kind of difficult to underwrite some of those. There's just way more varying factors for me. And so with underwriting a business and needing this block of like 6 numbers, and really that's it, it's a heck of a lot easier to compute those numbers than it is when you need to know like 10 different numbers or 20 different numbers to see if a deal makes sense and to see where the deal makes sense. Like it may make sense if you have it this way and you want to do a midterm rental where you can cash flow $300 a month only on a midterm rental, but you have to make sure that it's doing a long-term rental too, or you need to see if it's only going to work for short-term. So I think it's just the coming up with the exit strategies, figuring out where that kind of sits as well is kind of part of it. Like, are we going to wrap it? Are we going to just throw it on the market? Is the ARV actually going to cover the PML costs and everything else? Like there's so many more factors in there that I think that's why. And I mean, obviously a lack of experience.
I think we'll have to definitely dive into that more, because
I think if I created my own tool as I'm getting more experience underwriting this stuff, if I created my own simplistic tool, which I would really like to do, that would be way easier. I think if I created it, knowing what I need to look at, it would be simple because I would have a lot of things mapped.
Yeah, we'll have to dig into more, see where we go, because I'm just curious, because I agree. I think to me, business underwriting almost feels easier. Maybe because we've gone through so much nightmare the last year and a half that like I'm not nearly as good as you are, but like I feel I catch people in our groups already making tons of mistakes passing us deals. Like we underwrote a deal, obviously for last week, a couple days ago for another member, and he felt pretty confident. We had like 22 questions. Like, hey, there's a lot of things that don't make sense here, And outside of even doing a full due diligence or meeting the owners, we have a lot of questions that don't. The books already paint a picture of inconsistency. So, but they do well at real estate. So I want to understand more as we go, because a lot of our network has been real estate focused. Going into business now, like I said, ironically it feels more comfortable for us. We should have flip-flopped, probably bought more businesses over the last year and merged into this now. But I'd like to try to paint a picture, understand where that mind shift changes and how we can help people start to understand, coming from real estate, going into business acquisitions, how and why it makes more sense for them, and how to make more sense, I guess, because obviously there's like a lot of people in business like, oh, what's this? I don't know what this is. I don't know how to underwrite it. It seems overwhelming because I think there's more components, and I agree. I think there is, to me, more components for business than there is for a real estate, but I think it's less assumptions.
It is a lot less assumptions,
and people are worried because they got to make a lot of guesses about what it may or may not do. Let's go and say it's a turnkey scenario, which is maybe less than 30% of the deals you look at. But for business, it is in essence turnkey, right? If everything was to remain flat, you're already seeing historical numbers to show what you could expect if you didn't make any changes.
Yeah.
Loosely, I say that, obviously, but I'm not sure if maybe it's more of an emotional thing than it is an actual like numbers to the pad thing. Cause it's almost like
I think that
straightforward.
Because most people aren't in business, like they're not looking at financials on a daily basis, I think that that's where people are going to get overwhelmed is because as far as like when they get into a deeper level of underwriting for a high level thing that it's, you know, people, it could be very, very simple of they know these specific numbers or they can get these numbers just to kind of value where the business is. But once you dive into the P&L, it's like, okay, well, outside of revenue, not very many people know what really goes into, say, like cost of goods sold. They don't know what those components are to make up for that and why it's so much of the profit or what the other costs are after that and how the owner's equity is figured out. Like there's so many things that people that aren't in business don't know. And I think that's one of the reasons they're going to get nervous or scared when they're underwriting or ask a lot of questions or make a lot of mistakes because they just don't understand. They don't know where the debits and credits come in. They just don't know the financial piece of that because they're not involved in it.
Okay.
So I think that with the ability to make assumptions in real estate, and you could probably make some pretty dang close assumptions, but you have some historical data around that too, but it's very, very high level. Like you can see, okay, all these houses in this like half a mile radius sold for this much money that are very similar to this house. So we kind of know what the after repair value is. If you've ever done a flip before, you kind of know just based on pictures kind of what that looks like and you can get a guesstimate for that. And then, you know, depending on what you want to do with the house, you can go and you can look to see what the average rents are in the area, whether it be on, you know, PropStream or a Zillow. You can kind of see that information. So then all you got to do is say, okay, well, based on my assumptions, and then I add my, say, PML in there for entry fees, right? Like 35 grand, you're going to be able to say, okay, we got, this guy wants their money back in 18 months. Well, how do I split up 35 grand in 18 months and then add a little bit of interest on there? So those are kind of easier numbers, which doesn't really help my point earlier of it being more confusing for me. I just think it takes a little bit longer and I'm just not as confident, but it's just a few numbers that way with real estate outside of figuring out the, like when you get into the PM side of things, figuring out exactly what needs to be fixed and how to work with subcontractors, all those things. I mean, that comes kind of after the fact. But I think that's probably why it's a little bit easier for people to kind of get into real estate than it is for business. And for me, it's just, I've been doing business for so long that it's second nature to me. And real estate's just so new and I just need to figure out how to get my bearings with that. I need to do it more is really what it is.
Yeah, well, look, that's why we come from opposing scenarios there. But we did have some good ones. I think going back to business will be nice. That we'll probably do another future video or two. You're going to perfect that tool, at least for the quick underwriting. Because for a lot of us, the issue is going to be, you know, if you're looking at multiple states, multiple areas, you'll come across, just like real estate, several hundred businesses over a few months. And you have to figure out a way to make that quicker than spending, you know, hours on each one. So I think with your tool, you'll be able to at least do, you know, with 4 or 5 numbers, do a quick evaluation and do your 60-second elevator pitch. So hopefully we get that perfected. We can go over that. And then obviously the next step would be we're showing maybe look at some current financials and business looking at, and then showing things to look out for to show where a picture may be painted that may indicate a reason of concern or a reason of doubt or something to ask a question there.
Yeah, I definitely want to look at, I think what would be really good is looking at, even if we took out names and stuff, because obviously we sign NDAs for these things, so we can't really put all this information out there, but we could give a 100% video tutorial and do like a whiteboard or whatever it is and a video kind of maybe like a Zoom where we share a screen. And I can just go through, you know, that little piece on my little calculator and say, okay, well now I want to sign the NDA because this is good, or here's why it's not good, or it would only make sense at a high level if you gave them this much or if they took this much. And then kind of dig into, all right, here's what I look for and here's the ratios and the calculations I run to kind of see what that looks like.
Okay.
So I think that would be a good thing to do, for sure.
Yep. And as far as other wins go, I definitely think, well, we have our current SBA loan. We have SBA microloans for our current business. And then kind of going back to this whole scheme, what we're doing, the connections help us go to the next scenario. So we took our current SBA lender, refer us to another SBA officer or lender who help us some SBA 7 loans. And we learned some good information there, right? So we learned that, you know, you have to have 7% working capital they recommend. So of the loan amount, the SBA will see you need to have 7% of that amount to have as working capital when the deal closes. So
that's basically cash. Cash to keep going in the business.
Yeah, but it was unique that number he said was 7%. Typically, this is kind of like an average number, so 7% of the loan amount. So not of the deal amount, but of the loan amount that the SBA has given you. Secondly, he said, you know, typically down payment is 10 to 20%. And that even with private money lending, there still needs to be some sort of skin in the game. And then also the unique part with that jointly was that seller financing is allowed to be part of the deal when you close the deal. So unlike real estate, when you get an SBA loan, the officers are okay knowing, okay, you're going to bring 20% to the table. Well, 10% is mine, but 20% is coming from the seller. You can actually close the loan knowing that 10% is coming from the seller, and actually have that in place when you close escrow. You don't actually have to bring in money, close escrow, pay the lender back, and then refinance your seller in a second position. You can close the loan with all that already in place, the lender already aware of it. So it's unique because obviously if we could do that in real estate, we would avoid a lot of the headaches of having to shuffle money around. So that was a really cool thing that banks for business buying are very aware of creative financing, and it's kind of the norm. Yeah. You almost would never expect to buy a business on 100% financing. They wouldn't expect it at all. They mentioned that you can obviously bring in private money lending. They want to know where it's been, so they expect it to be seasoned for about 60 days, which is unique. It can be listed as a gift. But anyway, they're open to money coming in outside of your own funds, but it has to be tied somehow, whether it's a repayment or if it truly is a gift. We also learned that if money coming into the business from an outside gift or a partner is equal to 20% or more of the loan value, they're going to be required to be a personal guarantor on the loan. So that was unique as well. So
and consider more of a majority shareholder and not necessarily a full-on minority and kind of absentee shareholder.
Yeah, well, they can still assume a passive role, but the SBA is going to ask them to be on the loan as a personal guarantor. They can't be absentee from that scenario. So up to 19% would be the sweet spot, but you can always give them more or less managing rights in the business. We also learned that obviously more collateral is useful, and they won't necessarily collateralize the business unless it has one real estate or very tangible assets like heavy machinery or things that are large working equipment. So that was unique as well because we thought hopefully the business would be collateral, but actually you have to have cross collateralization just like real estate, but it has to be outside the business because the assumption is you're going to buy the business, you're probably going to crash the business in six months. So we have to make sure we can cover our butts outside of it. But he said it's not required to cross-collateralize. It will help your case and help you get approved. But if there is cross-collateralization or cross-collateral, they are required to put their name in a second lien position. So if you have a house or another business, they will put themselves in second position irregardless because they won't use their current business at least for the first several years. So it's an important thing to make note of that if you are going to go SBA loan, that you're going to have other cross collateral to make your odds of approval higher. It's not required, but if it is there and you do have collateral, they are going to just post a blanket on all your assets to cover their costs.
Yeah.
At least probably two, if not doubling the value of the loan amount.
Yeah.
So that's obviously where some partners may come in. They may be useful. You might have a partner come in with no money, but give you enough collateral to help you get the loan approved. But obviously the trick there was that it is a personal guarantee if you are using an SBA loan. We also learned that most loans are only 10-year terms. They go up to 25 though if they do have real estate involved. So if you can buy a deal that sits on the real estate, you can get much better terms. We learned that the rates are about 2 to 3 points higher than the market or the prime rate right now. So I think we're underwriting around 12% to be safe. Just get a little extra wiggle room depending when the business actually closes. We also learned that most SBA loans, at least now, are not long-term loans. Most people use them as a bridge or term type of gap loan to refinance into a longer-term, lower-rate loan with a 30-year arm once they have 2 or 3 years of financials, and then you can do that. So SBA is kind of almost like this higher risk PMP out of the gate who's willing to take more risk, but they are 3 or 4% higher and significantly shorter terms, by probably half, if not even more. So that was unique to learn as well, but it did give us some opportunity to figure out how to underwrite now. But good assumption was that using SBA as a short-term loan, unless you got it some years ago, otherwise you're going to be up shit's creek if you kind of use that for long-term because the rates aren't that good. And we also learned that bringing in partners is great and you can do these underwriting, but real estate is probably going to be the unique way to blend these opportunities. If we can find something on real estate, we can decrease the payment by about 50%. And we can use that to cross-collateralize on the loan as well. Yep. So that makes a huge difference, and we were not quite aware of that, especially the money down payment, the 7% required for working capital. So if you're going to underwrite a deal and bring in partners, I would say, have them bring in 7 to 10% more than you need to show proof of working capital if you can't get great terms. And obviously, with all this being said, ideally, get seller carry to do the bulk of it, right? If you can get an SBA loan for 50% or less, you have a much higher odds of approval, especially if the deal makes sense. But
yeah. Well, one of the nice things also with the seller carry is the expectation of repayment of the seller carry. So if the seller's carrying, $100,000 of this purchase, they're not allowed to ask you for any more than either interest, and they have a very specific amount of interest they're allowed to ask for, or they have to postpone payments for 2 years. So the SBA wants to make sure that they are first in line.
Well, that actually,
to get payments.
on the call, that just changed.
That just changed?
That is not required. Funny enough, so it's not required. They are more lenient on that, but they will underwrite the deal themselves, and they will reinstate those terms if the deal will be too tight or too cash negative, if you have to pay SBA loan as a debt servicer and the seller.
Wow.
So they will
Within 3 days, that changed.
Yes. So he said it's not strictly enforced, but they will reinforce those terms if the deal is too thin.
Which makes sense.
They renegotiate those terms, he said, just because sellers are pushing back because, well, then I don't want to do the seller carry if I have to wait this long. I want more financing. But then SBA is I don't want to finance the whole loan. It's too risky. So it came to a compromise, but there is some wiggle room, but the SBA will, luckily, pro and con, it's a high rate loan, but there will be another set of eyes to underwrite the deal, and they will call the deal if they think there's any major red flags. So there is room to, stop yourself from committing to a bad deal. You do have a second, if not third set of eyes help. That was a really good thing we learned about that today. And obviously, they're willing to help underwrite deals even before you're ready to commit to the deal. If you're ready to do an LOI, they'll actually help underwrite and give you a second opinion. But you know what? I think it's good. Let's pursue further. Start the process.
Yeah. They also recommended very, very highly actually working with a business broker. That was one of the things that the gentleman that we talked to was look, I understand that you have experience in this and you guys have done this before. He says, but if you find a good broker, they will do most of that work for you. They will find you the good deals. They will bring you the stuff that makes the most sense. Not even just in the specific industries that you're looking for, but just they'll be almost the first set of eyes to underwrite. So they understand their job, and their job is to not only, find deals and brokerage these deals, but it's to actually make sure that their clients are taken care of. And so that was one of the things that he had said too, is if you can find a good one and you guys mesh well and you can play off of each other's strengths and weaknesses, obviously I'm decent at underwriting deals, and if they were to bring me something and say, here's what I found, and it's okay, well, here's where I see something, or this is why I think it's great. Having a partnership that way is actually something that they highly recommend. Obviously you have to pay for a business broker, so there's another expense out of there. But if you're inexperienced in business underwriting or inexperienced in running a business, it's not a bad way to go.
Funny enough, I don't think I've shared this with you, but the two people that we are working with talking about business, they have made their immediate wins from connecting to a broker very quickly. And now they work with their broker exclusively for their deals. And yeah, the two people we work with on a regular basis who've had the most success have a broker that they met by strictly cold calling and then striking a conversation and then became buddies. And those brokers became friends loosely. And now that broker just keeps sending them deals and trying to sell them on a deal. So,
but man, that is so hard to find. Not to go off on a tangent, but we've talked before about our business and the one we currently have, and we were dealing with two brokers, and one of them was here in the U.S. and one of them was overseas, and he was acting kind of as an interpreter for some investors that they wanted to buy our vendor side of our Amazon accounts. Apparently, they're worth their weight in gold. We had no idea, and they were honestly the shadiest people that I've met in a very long time. Outside of the first owner of this business, they were very, very shady. It was really hard because they played nice for so long. And then when we refused to kind of play by their rules, but it was because they were asking us for our social security numbers. And it's I'm not giving you my social security number over the internet or over the phone. No, we're just not doing that. And so they sent some really nasty text messages and just started freaking out. And so I think that, to your point, finding that broker and the fact that they could actually do that just off some cold calls and just making buddy, I think that's rare.
Yeah.
And so they've gotten very, very lucky, but just be really careful and make sure to do your due diligence on brokers too, because they're not all the same.
Yeah, and that can be even said with, any working professional. We have business. We actually have a couple business attorneys we work with now. And we found some, are easier to work with than others. Some have a different type of approach. And, just like anything, you got to interview. You're going to go through a few you don't like, a few that work well. But finding out that story kind of leads into our next kind of big win for the week is that we completed Melissa Palmer's Borrower Passport. We happen to be the very first people to do it, so we got to be guinea pig. It's been about, 5-6 weeks in the working?
Something like that, yeah.
So we kind of jumped on quickly. We connected with Melissa, and then we realized that, we jumped on real early, and she's still trying to figure out some of the pieces. But it's been a great experience so far, and we finally just promoted it on Facebook, today it was, a few days ago?
Yesterday, yeah. And she's so sweet. You would not look at her and think that she worked for the FBI or does work for the FBI. It's baffling. She looks so young. She looks like she's super young. It doesn't have any way that she could have this experience. But she was so knowledgeable, and even just watching her, because we all now follow her on Instagram and we're kind of friends, and we've, I think, connected really well with her just because she's so personable. But she just drops these bombs. It's like, wait, what? You would have never thought that, somebody that looks as young as she does, would know these kinds of things. And she's so, even if she's not as young as she is or looks or is, whatever.
She gets this a lot. People make this joke a lot, and she's heard it 100 times.
Oh, I'm sure she has.
She's like, yes,
I think
guys,
I've
I
said
get
it. I've said it to her, and so it's she's so knowledgeable. And that's kind of what I was getting at. She's very mature, and she's very knowledgeable in all aspects of kind of what we're doing. And the whole point of the passport is to basically do a mini background check, if you will, but it's more to alleviate the need for rigorous interviews and trying to really, really, really build out those connections over a really long time. You can now say, hey, I have this borrower's passport. It's got all of our information. So it's got Shane and I's, what we have experience in, kind of what our jobs have been, what our credit scores are. And, if you're looking for people that want to be a personal guarantee on something. So there's a lot of background information. There's no driver's licenses on there. There's no socials. There's anything like that. It's just very high level, but it gives you a good, there's reference checks, for people that you've worked with, whether it be.
Let me interrupt you there. So we submitted driver's license, background check, social securities to Melissa. So she has verified all that.
Yes. But it's not listed on.
But everything is on a one-page landing page website. So for people to see the information that's been verified, but it's not set up so someone could go on there and grab your social security. Correct. And then go, pretend to be you.
Yeah.
It's on there that it's been verified, and you can see what any current scores are, or any kind of current security
bankruptcies
issues.
Or liens, especially in real estate, right? The risk of getting in with partners that, you could potentially have a lien on a house. You could have multiple liens from the IRS. There could be all sorts of red flags there. And this is to help. And that's one of the reasons she's doing this, is to help to say, hey, Shane and Crystal don't have any of this crap on their record. They're decent people. Mm-hmm. It's okay to work with them. She's kind of giving her thumbs up, if you will, to anybody that wants to use us as private money lenders or private money partners, or give us money, to lend us money. So that's kind of the point of it, and a little bit of the background of the program. She's tweaking it. She's doing a lot with it. We hopped on a call. She sent us some questions, and it was 6 or 7 pages of questions. And I'm not a vulnerable person, is where Shane is. So he was loving this. And I was getting horribly overwhelmed. I'm like, oh my God, this is so much to try to go through 1 or 2 days before we hop on this call with her. And luckily we didn't go over every single question. I think we were on the call for an hour and a half.
Yep.
But we didn't go over everything, but it allowed us to kind of dive deeper and really reflect on what we want in the business for us, and the types of business partners we want to work with, whether that means, people that we JV with, or if it means people that we lend with, or people that are lenders to us. It kind of gave us a better starting point. It really made us think a lot as to what we're looking for. And I think it's been, like Shane said, it's been a great experience that way. And I think that because of going through the process, especially after taking that deep dive with all those questions, we kind of sat back and we'd already started thinking about a few things, And then getting on that call and talking about it afterwards, we really realized what our values are in the business partners that we do take on, no matter what the capacity is. And so I think that just in that alone, it's made all of the overwhelming questions worth it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I want to go back and say with asterisks that Melissa doesn't guarantee us. So
No.
I'll make sure we don't put that out there. She's not like, something we work with us, I think it's go bad. Melissa has no connection
she's
to
no
it.
skin in the game that way.
She's not guaranteed it, but it's almost like we bought into a service and it's a consultation service, and she wanted to provide more value than just a background check and a credit check, which any of us can do on our own accord, but she uses it more as a consultation service, one, to help shape people as they grow into better business minded, more focused on the business, but also for her to ascertain who we are. So if someone's going to call and say, hey, I see you got to borrow a passport, please tell me about them. Are they legit? What do I need to know? She at least can gather a sense of who we are as individuals and speak to us almost like a professional reference, even though we haven't actually done business with her yet. So the questions were double fold. It was for her to further verify who we are and for us to continuously improve our missions and focus. So it made sense that it was a bit more intrusive than we thought it would be, but it was useful for us to grow the business, but also useful for her to better speak to who we are if people are going to be asking for her to kind of verify or speak to what her impressions of us have been.
Yeah.
So that was unique. But the reason I think that this whole thing has been unique in its essence that it's spiraled in numerous opportunities where we've almost made the mistake again, and also where it stemmed from, right? So going back to our initial sale of our business that we initiated about 6 months ago, it was a whole scenario where people were asking for verification of who we are, wanted to prove our identity, and we got leery about it because the whole process seemed wishy-washy and it kind of put a bad taste in our mouth. I think we thought about that further, and it wasn't so much that what was asked of us was the issue, but how it was asked and how they wanted the information to be shared. So this really fit in with our model because, one, it allowed us to provide information freely that we can share with multiple people in a secure spot. It doesn't have to be, it's not over the internet, we're not emailing, we're not setting stuff.
Yeah, it's password protected.
We're not very loosely. The website is password protected, so we share it with our people who are interested. But we're not just emailing Social Security, driver's license over email. It's already been vetted and it's on a secure site that is password protected for people to visit. So that makes it a layer for us of protection that we like. And also we can now use this reference for multiple things. We can share this website with these other business brokers, other business buyers, people buying our site without having to share it. We've already done that work and now it's there. We can renew it every couple months or every year as our assets change. So that was the opportunity that we learned that we didn't like the process before we knew about this, and now we were eager to jump in because of the headaches we had. But more importantly, which we caught ourselves almost making the mistake again, was more recently about the last 3 weeks trying to buy into other business we were looking at. And we got ready to almost fund. We were almost ready to sign and start funding. And we almost didn't do it without background checks or even high-level credit checks. So we wrote an email, we were ready to fund, we had a few quick questions, and we asked if we wouldn't just do a quick background check and security check or a credit check. And we had a lot of pushback. They almost all either deflected the question or said that we are not comfortable doing this and this is not a partnership we want. So we learned a few things there, right? So the first thing was maybe our pitch needs to be different because I think people felt just intrusive as we did about when we got asked for it. So maybe our approach needs to be different, that people know that we aren't asking personally. This will be done through lawyers or attorneys. If you don't have a borrower pass, it will be done through lawyers and attorneys, and they will verify it. Then they'll just share with us that A, there's a bankruptcy, or yes, there's a felony or misdemeanor charge. And it is up for us to make that decision. But we won't be collecting information when we ask for it for other stuff. We won't ask for it personally. It'll go through attorney to attorney or to our attorneys.
Absolutely.
But secondly, we put that out there and we learned quickly now because we were so ready to fund and we felt this nervousness of missing the opportunity that we're like, oh man, if we don't jump in now, we're going to miss opportunity. It's going to blow by us. But I said, no, we've already committed time to do this passport. We're committed to reestablishing our values. Let's put it out there because we're not going to shake our values. So funny enough, what did we learn? We put it out there. We had some pushback. Things got weird for a while. They kind of disappeared for 2 weeks. And then come to find out, the partners themselves started falling apart because they were finding some distrust amongst themselves. So having this was so beneficial because it caused for making our own mistake and refreshing our mind. Like, hey guys, don't forget you've committed to this. Don't circumnavigate because you're getting shiny object syndrome. But also it paused us just enough to watch the true show come to light, and those partnerships that we were joining started to fall apart and started to become chaos. So we saved ourselves so much headache because we were no longer interested at all.
Yeah.
Even if the business was to go well, we realized that they're not ready for us to come on.
Yeah.
So I think that was a unique thing as well, kind of speaking the passport, because some people I know are not into it. Some people are going to push back. We've already posted it. Some people hate the idea. I think it's really too much, too intrusive. But for us, we're all about being out there, being vulnerable for it. And I feel that we're protecting the way it's presented. It's vetted in a good way. And it's literally already saved us almost $250,000.
Absolutely.
In making a mistake in like the 2 weeks we've been at this process.
Yep.
So I can't speak for that idea enough. So, but I think more important was like going back to like what we learned a lot this week was we were already invested in this process, spending money and time, and we were almost already made the mistake of being eager to rush the bum on this. Like, oh, we're going to miss opportunity. And then having that say, hey guys, don't forget, like you've spent time, like make this, if this is your vision and value, hold to it. And we did that. And like that, it came to light that we were going to make a huge mistake.
Yep.
So I think that's, unique, not especially speaking to people in the Bar Passport are pitching for Melissa's program, but just back to our mission and values which goes back to how we had these conversations the last 2 weeks and all these deep conversations was once you have your mission and values, stick to them, it'll make the decisions much easier and faster. Because even if the opportunity is great and you can make $10 million tomorrow, but it doesn't align with your mission and values, it's better just to skip it because you'll have less mental anguish over time with it.
Yeah,
and that's where our pain point is. It's not so much the money or the time, it's just like the constant overwhelmingness of decisions. And this helped streamline the decisions very quickly. And all that anxiety we had for months was resolved in like 60 seconds.
Very much so. Absolutely. And I think one of the other kind of like more recent and just the last day kind of wins, we did post it in a couple different areas. We posted it to our Whiskey Wins and Business page, and we posted it to a couple of real estate groups. And we have had, for the most part, like Shane said, we've gotten some pushback, which is fine. You know what? If this is not your cup of tea, that's not your cup of tea. Like whatever works for you. Whatever you need to do to feel comfortable in your business, this is just how we go about ours. But we've had an overwhelming number of people in just the last 24 hours since we put a post out there that are so intrigued by the process and they want to learn more and do this themselves. But it's also like, hey guys, we love that you did this. We love that you actually took the time, you had the trust to do this, and now we want to work with you. Mm-hmm. And so even if only half of those people, or a quarter of those people that are now reaching out to us actually come to fruition at some point, that's still a quarter more people than we had before out of, say 30 people that have reached out. Like we've actually had so many people reach out and say, hey, we really want to work with you. Like we want to lend or we want to, partner with you or whatever it is because we've gone through this process. So I think that, I trust what her program's done. Like I have no reservation about my information being out there. So I think that especially, her working for the FBI and everything else, I think that's kind of a big deal. That's...
Well, I think we need to make sure it's FBI. You keep saying FBI. I don't remember if it's FBI or not. So
I thought it was the FBI.
Let's have to confirm. We apologize for that. But we'll just use military for now. And
military, sure. I thought it was
private
the FBI.
investigator. But anyway, I think the bigger point there is less focusing on Melissa's program because obviously make sure that we promote her program in a better light and under her consent. But it's more back to the mission and values was that some people we've weeded out already very quickly. Some people we connected with on numerous occasions. We haven't done work, but just connected. Had a lot of pushback on our process. So I think we've already know that some people that we were connecting with are probably no longer going to be connections for us. Just because we know that if business is going to start getting deeper, skin in the game is going to be involved, we're going to have a lot of contention if that's how our brain and our values align. So I think
that's okay.
This has helped us avoid some future headaches very quickly already, even in the day or two of releasing it. But we've also met some people who are very gung-ho. With that being said, I think it also dives into further connecting with the network you already have. So we have another network of people we work with for some other real estate acquisition stuff. And some people in my group found out about this and we connected, and we found out very quickly that they themselves have money and experience and knowledge that we hadn't even tapped into. We have been connecting for a while, and they were a little bit reserved, not just anything intentionally, just as their own demeanor, but we found out that like in our close knit people who we talk on a daily basis, who already had a good connection, but this kind of pushed on the edge, that people were sharing knowledge with me of like things that they have skill sets and access to that I had no idea. And we talk on a daily basis, and the people have access to capital I didn't know, access to legal and financial resources that are unknown, and some people had experience to stuff that I've been trying to solve right now, that we're trying to solve. Like, oh yeah, I've done that for 10 years.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we're baffled that like people in our network who are so close had so much information we didn't know. So it's a double-edged sword. One, being vulnerable helped us find people to be more vulnerable with us as well, and also allow us to even further hone our network that we already had resources at our disposal under our nose that we had no idea were there. And simply just by being more forthcoming with what we needed, and people just started popping up. And we had 7-8 inquiries before 10 a.m. this morning. So
yeah.
it was quite the busy day or morning after we listed that. We had a lot of opportunities pop up, and I would say probably 2 of them are pretty viable. And there's opportunity there. So it was unique. We reestablished our mission values. We put them to practice. They saved us from $250,000 potential loss, and they also brought to us numerous new connections, and also the connections which are true and valid for us further opened the floodgates, and our pockets grew, our knowledge grew, and our access to resources grew, and our friendships grew too. Because some of these people we're going to start promoting because like, oh my God, you're such a badass, and you know all this and that, no idea.
Yeah.
And we learned that some people have experience that I didn't even knew it existed. So it's always evolving, and I think just as we continue to once again set our mission and values and continue to pursue in that same degree all the time without being deterred, we'll find that decisions get quicker, the anxiety gets less, the opportunities grow, and we just find that things fall into place quicker. So that's kind of been our last week and a half, 2 weeks in a nutshell now.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's been a kind of a roller coaster on some days for sure, but it's been great learning on all fronts. I think that it's been very valuable. We spent a lot of time outside of the weeds and connecting a little bit more with people and kind of learning about ourselves and what avenues that we want to go to grow, whether it be in real estate or business, and kind of refocus on the direction on where we want to go, like our buy box, if you will. Like we've really been able to hone that and kind of now we're owning it. Like I think that's the biggest thing is, all right, well, we said we wanted to do this, and then we reframed and said we wanted to do this, and then we reframed and said we want to do this, and maybe this too, and now we've gotten it so kind of tailored to where there's no reason that we can't just go after what we want, and there's no change.
Yeah.
Hi, puppy. Sorry, my kid decided to walk in. No idea what he just said.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I think that kind of summarizes where we got a lot of stuff. I think the action now is we spent the last 3 or 4 months in chaos. We spent a month now really focusing what we're going to do with those. And now I think the next 30 to 120 days is going to be implementing those.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see some fruition come to light. We're going to see a lot of things happen where it's been kind of stagnant. We've kind of been building up the momentum, and now it's going to kind of open the floodgates. We're going to have a lot of like actual opportunity, like solidify, execute, and come to. So I think that's where we're going to be the next few months or so.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, yeah, I think that's it. I think we can wrap this one up and get to it and get on to the next one. Well, hopefully we'll keep doing this video, guys. We'll kind of try to do them once a week. We'll make them into shorts and some long-form videos. We're always eager to connect. We'll obviously keep our connections posted in the video links, and then otherwise we'll continue to do this and see where it takes us.
And if anybody wants to come on and they want to, whether it be in person or via Zoom or whatever it is, and connect and actually like interview, we'd love to interview people and talk to people, especially people in our groups that have done business or done well in real estate, and some of the things that they've kind of gone through, so that people kind of see all sides of the story and what works, what doesn't work, and stuff like that. So if anybody actually wants to connect and work together on our podcast, if you will, then just hit us up.
Okay, we'll have whiskey next time too.
Yes.
Everyone's safe to know the fall's coming. Here we are, Halloween, so we'll Do
And
some hot
I'm getting over a
toddies.
cold, and I'm traveling here in literally 3 hours to go to Houston for a couple of days on a red eye. So no whiskey today.
Yeah, maybe some hot toddies next week or something.
Ooh, that sounds yummy.
As we finally come into the fall winter time here.
Yes, that'll work.
Well, awesome. Everyone, I guess we'll say bye for now, and I guess Spunky, you're now in this video for 30 seconds or a minute here of
Puppy love.
puppy love, or I don't know, being a starlight here real quick. Well, we'll see you guys. Have a good one.
Bye. No, sir.